I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending August the 2nd, brought to you in part by the International Brangus Breeders Association. Do you want the benefits of heterosis without sacrificing quality grade? Check out GoBrangus.com to find a Brangus breeder near you. Just getting back from Dodge City, Kansas, was up at the King of the Ring auctioneer contest over the weekend. Still trying to recover from that. I've been cussing that damn Jay Romine and Brian Little all day here, but gonna get feeling some better. But I tell you what a show we got to see in Dodge City, and the camaraderie and you know, industry people, cattle buyers, auctioneers, market owners. It was just a good time had by all, good time to get together and see all that. It's the best of the best auctioneers. Normally you wouldn't see world champions ever compete again, but for this deal they get enough money put up, $10,000 to the winner, and then it pays several places on down into the finalists. But just a really top-notch auctioneer contest, top-notch feeder cattle special. I got to give kudos to Winter Livestock and their whole crew for putting that on. That was a accumulation of about 25,000 head of cattle that they marketed towards the end of the week, this past week and over the weekend. They had a big sale at Winter Livestock in Pratt. They had their big High Plains video on Friday, and then had the King of the Ring special in Dodge City at Winter Livestock there on Saturday, and it was a really impressive contest, and was able to get in there on Friday, and they had a golf tournament there and had a gathering there at the Country Club in Dodge City. I got to shake hands with John Campbell with Winter Livestock in La Junta, Colorado. A lot of you guys know him, and I got to see him and his crew there playing golf, and we're very proud of their Trump banners. And if you guys don't believe it, I tell you what, cattle people for sure are for Trump. We're riding the Trump train, especially after Friday's announcement that he made another deal on the European Union to start taking more of our beef. Yes, there's going to be some restrictions on it, but there should be plenty of program cattle out there for us to jump through the hoops to get that. And anytime we can market more beef in places that we haven't been sending, it's great. And I'm just glad that he's got it on his mind and that he's trying. But I guarantee you, a lot of support for the Trump 2020 campaign in the cattle arena. And I know they're trying to say that these tariffs have got all the farmers turned against him. The farmers may be a little frustrated with their row crop grain markets right now, but they know it's not all Trump's fault, and even though the media says that, you're not going to find an overwhelming amount of farmers that are down on Trump, because they know he's working hard. He's at least trying to maneuver and get us in a situation where we can get more trade, and in the long run it's going to work out. And you got to go through some rough waters to get to the glass water eventually, and I think that's what we're doing. But at that King of the Ring auctioneer contest, they had 13 of the best auctioneers in the country. It all come down to the best one that was there on that day. Any one of them could have won, but this year Charlie Cummins won. A very, very nice guy, gentleman, and world-class, first-rate auctioneer. Been a world champion for quite a while. Not sure what year he won that, but it hasn't been too awful long when he won that world championship. He sells with Superior Livestock, does a great job, and just a class guy right there. Really happy for him and his family to get to enjoy that title, and it was a great deal, and everybody was glad that he won it and knew that it was well deserved. A guy named Chuck Bradley from Montgomery, Alabama, got to be a friend of mine over just the last few months here. Got to meet him out in California. I've actually ran into him 2 or 3 times over there, but really a good guy. Chuck Bradley got a strong chant, and got that southern dialect and a good deep voice there, and I tell you what, he just pops when he sells, and it's just going to be not too long here before he's going to be able to collect all those buckles and all those banners and those checks that go with those big auctioneer contests, because he's absolutely nipping at their heels, and he'll push over the top ring here before long. But probably the best thing that I saw that come out of the award ceremony at the King of the Ring was Kenny Wilcox, my longtime friend and mentor when it come to me wanting to be an auctioneer when I was a young man. Kenny Wilcox, he sold in Amarillo, Texas here for a long time, sold in the sale barn that my granddad built in Clayton, New Mexico for a long time, sold in Dalhart, Texas, Tulia, Texas. He has since moved back to his home country in Arkansas and sells over there and in some Oklahoma barns there. But Kenny Wilcox has been a world-class auctioneer forever. He is the 1990 world champion and just a great guy. And he won the Champion's Choice, which all the auctioneers that were there got to vote on who they wanted, who their favorite was, or who they wanted to have that title, and it was Kenny Wilcox. And I guarantee you, when you're voted on something by your peers, it just makes it that much stronger. And I guarantee you, everybody was tickled to see him get that, and he was absolutely tickled to get it. So that was a great deal. Let's talk about the board at the end of the week last week. August live cattle futures. Monday was unchanged. Tuesday down 55. Wednesday down $1.20. Thursday up 97 cents. Friday down 22. With August live cattle ending the week at 107.65. Your August feeder cattle, Monday was down $1.42. Tuesday up 80. Wednesday down $1.57. Thursday down 30 cents. And Friday down $1.60. With your August feeder cattle contracts ending the week at 139.62. All your fall contracts on Friday were down over $3. And that didn't do any favors for the market at the King of the Ring sale, although it was outstanding. We knew it would be. It was not nearly as good as the Thursday sale in Pratt on similar type cattle, and then that board being down over $3 on all those fall contracts. That was a lot for it, and then also the failure in your fat cattle arena. But your live cattle futures for October ended the week at 107.82, so don't have a whole lot to look forward to there as far as that looks like. And your September feeder cattle contracts down at 138.22 with that rough Friday. So now they are lower and no longer trading at a premium to what our spot feeder cattle futures are. But your fat cattle trade, I went on a rant there on Thursday. A lot of you watched it. I didn't get too many bad comments, and it just was a very, very disheartening, the trade that we had this past week on your fat cattle. We came into the week with a head of steam after a higher market the week before. We knew that we were going to be able to keep that $1.12 steady money in the Southern Plains, and at least $1.14 up north, and maybe 185 or even better, and started trading around there a little bit. And then on Wednesday, basis jumpers, because the board was down so hard on Wednesday, they saw a $4 opportunity there to tack on to their hedged position, so they jumped at that at lower money. I can see being a basis jumper at steady money, that's one thing, but dropping a buck when it's clearly evident that you're going to be able to gain a buck, that's unbelievable. But should have been 113, could have been 112, ended up being 111, and everybody was stuck with it. And then continued failure of the board late in the week. That's just how it goes. And then they didn't announce that EU trade until after the fat cattle had sold, so just kind of a bust on this last fat cattle trade. But through Thursday, 55,400 head, sold several more on Friday, so should be up there around 80 or 90,000, and that's kind of what they need to trade for the week. But all your Southern Plains was stuck with 111. We saw that on Wednesday. The guys thought maybe Thursday they could get it turned back around and get back up to 112, but I tell you, when you get your legs knocked out from under you when you're trying to climb a hill, it's hard to get around, and ended up trading at 111 some more, and that's what they were stuck with if they wanted to sell cattle this week. That was a buck lower in the Southern Plains. Now the Northern Plains, mostly steady. There were some spots of a buck lower Friday on some trades there at 113, but mostly 114, some 114 and a half. Of course, Iowa and some of those premium deals was getting up 116, 117, and they've been trading earlier in the week, and that's when they got that. Your dress trade in the Northern Plains was from 180 to 185, probably more 183 than 185, and I'm sure that the weighted average will probably show that we lost some ground, but we didn't see much dress trade later on in the week, so may have kind of held that together, but your live sales weighted average for the week will definitely be lower. You know, I hinted around talking about how there's a lot of talk of trying to change that live cattle contract around where it's a little more helpful. We see it stay a little more true to the market, and we could hopefully get more longs interested in taking a position and buying the board instead of selling it all the time, the way the industry does whenever it's having to when it's trying to manage its risk and laying off there with a hedge. But there's been talk of finding a way to make that contract more attractive to speculators and people that want to go on the long side. And one of the reasons we have failure all the time in our spot market is because those speculators don't want the risk of having to take delivery of the cattle. We've always thought that delivery was a good thing, and it has been. It's kept a bite in that contract. But now we're getting to the point where it may be hurting a contract, and we might be better off with a cash settlement, and it could keep the longs in there a little bit longer instead of dumping out right at the spot, right when we're trying to sell the fat cattle, and it just kind of keeps us treading water all the time and not gaining any ground. But a good friend of mine, a guy that I talk to every day that gives me a lot of good information. He's very smart. He's much smarter than I am, and his name is Lee Richmuth. He's from Nebraska, and he's kind of put together a scenario of how we can change this. If you would like to see that and see kind of what they're thinking or talking about, looking at a way to make it like an S&P type futures where it would have several settlements, maybe even within a week, but it'll keep that thing a lot more true. And I think he's got a good idea there, and of course those guys are a lot more well versed in that future stuff than I am in the technicals, but the way he was talking, it was making sense, and he's got a lot of big organizations and a lot of big people listening to him. But you can see some of what he's talking about on his Twitter account at Lee Richmuth, and he spells his last name a little different, Reichmuth. But take a look at that and kind of follow it and see how this deal goes along. I know he's got plans to meet with several organizations here as soon as he can get his presentation put together. Box beef cutout values, I guess, did bottom out a week before this past one, which we thought they would. We saw some strength in the market this week. Your weighted average on the bulk of this past week's sales, choice cuts 213.96. That was 87 cents higher than the weighted average of previous week. Selects at 190.11, 86 cents higher there. Giant choice select spread at 23.85. We're kind of getting that grading percentage back to where it normally is, and people aren't liking it. They were getting used to 80-some% of the cattle grading choice and prime, which anybody ought to know it was out of whack. But just kind of a moderate movement at best. 576 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter was pretty good compared to a year ago, but not so much the last week. 626,000 through the week. That was 28,000 less than just the prior week, but 2,000 more than the same week a year ago. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on Cattle Market Central ended the week at 141.71. That was up $2.21. And I will say that was strongly influenced by those winter livestock sales late in the week, including Dodge. And you say, oh, it's on a Saturday, it can't be in the index. It's in the real-time index, yes. So winter livestock at Dodge City and at Pratt were both in there and heavily influenced that because they had big runs at both of them. So that may show it to be a little bit stronger than what it was. I don't know if our markets would have averaged more than $2 higher for the week, but your index level $2.21 higher than the end of the previous week. You look back at your feeder markets, what happened this week. The city in Oklahoma City was wild on Monday come out. We thought it'd be a little bit better, and it was a lot better. It was like $2 to $7 higher. And that was kind of curious there because none of your other markets are that much better. And of course, your city market is heavily influenced by your corporate feeders, but it was a lot better. But everybody was pretty good Monday, Tuesday, and then we kind of started struggling Wednesday with the board down hard on Wednesday, and it's getting to where everybody's watching that board. It's all about the basis. They hedge everything all the way to its gills. I think we do need to get some changes around on this contract for the live cattle and make it more true if everybody's going to be in it, and it's more about what the basis is, and everybody's planning on a $4, $5, $6, maybe $8 basis when the cattle come. Well, if you can't tell us within $8 a hundred what the cattle market is at fruition, at the settlement of the contract in the spot month, it's not doing a very good job indicating what that product is worth. But anyway, Wednesday was rough. Then Thursday and Friday kind of came back a little bit on your feeder cattle. People want to buy them. Your calf demand was much better this past week. We've gotten through a lot of the heat. It's really hot now, but guys are already starting to get interested in buying some calves. And the main reason they're starting to get interested in that is because a lot of your new crop calves are starting to show up, and the better deals of them, not just the pee-wees and the odd deals. Some of the good strings of calves are starting to show up, and there's good demand for them when they get there, as long as they're weaned and got all their shots and everything. But let's talk about that sale at Dodge City Winter Livestock. Had 8,200 head there. I will say that the way that the morning was, it was almost chilly Saturday morning after a hot day on Friday, and it was almost chilly and quite a bit of mist in the air, and the cattle were pretty full coming in. The weigh up was not as good as everybody talked. I wasn't in Pratt, but talked to everybody, and they said that the cattle were a lot emptier there and had a more attractive weigh up in Pratt, and it was awful hot Pratt all day and started early. But those cattle had took on some fill and drank pretty hard there on Saturday morning, and I would say that affected the market just a little bit. And I'm not saying it was a bad market by any stretch of the imagination, but your steers weighing under 900 pounds and your heifers weighing under 8, they were probably $3 to $6 lower than Pratt. Of course, your board was most of it, and then that failure of a fat cattle trade there that we couldn't get turned back around late in the week, that probably hurt. But your heavier cattle were not that much lower. Your heifers weighing over 8 and your steers weighing over 9, probably steady to week, maybe a buck or two lower in some spots. But let's look at some of your average prices there on steers. Almost 3,000 head, 2,789 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 843 pounds at 140-109 on the average. Your 9-weights, there was over 1,500 head of those, averaged 934 at 135.96 on the weighted average price. Heifers, your best test with weights was in your 7-weight category, 1,060 head of 7-weight heifers, averaged 741 at 136.39. And then that was a good sale there, but like I say, we knew it was going to be good. They had all the big buyers there, and everybody was aggressive. And of course, they had the best cattle there. Most all those cattle coming right in fresh off the grass, you can't believe the quality they had there, and it was just a very, very impressive sale there, and we would like to have seen the market pop some of those numbers that we'd seen on some specials even just 2 days earlier in Pratt, but they kind of, you know, swept the feet under the market there late in the week and couldn't quite get there, but the cattle were plenty high, I guarantee you that. But the highest cattle that we saw in the United States this last week, and Brandon Neely, auctioneer that was one of the contestants there, I was consoling him after that because he didn't win the championship, which he could win it any year or any time. But I said, Brandon, you still sold the highest cattle of the week. And I said, the proof's kind of in the pudding there if we're talking about how well you can sell cattle. But Brandon Neely in Radiant, Virginia on Thursday night. And then he hooked them all the way down to Dodge City on Friday. But at the Virginia Cattle Company board sale, Radiant, Virginia, that's a Gary Vance sale there. And it's through Central Virginia Cattlemen's Association, Butch Foster and that whole gang there having those good board sales. But listen to this, and the whole board sale was crazy high. But look at these individual quote. Some fall calves, they're just calves, long time weaned, 60 days weaned, but sure enough calves. They've had everything they've wanted every day of their life. So you can imagine what the condition is kind of on them. But the main deal was the cattle pretty tame. The old boy hand-fed the cattle, kept them really docile. That's worth a lot, especially when you're going into that Lancaster County feeding area up there. And anyway, that probably helped the cattle more than anything. The guys that had the cattle before, they knew how they'd perform. They knew how they could handle them, and that's what they liked probably as much as anything. But the quality outstanding, of course. But 64 head of 770-pound steer calves in Radiant, Virginia bring $166 on Thursday. That's a look at your markets from a Home DV auction office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.